Is the workshop really all it's cracked up to be? This is a little bit of a different episode. My name is Phil. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Marriage Helper, and today I am so honored to have my wife, Lynsi, with me today.
Hi, everybody.
So recently, we just experienced the in-person workshop for the very first time. I've been with the team 6 months now, at the time of recording, and we've been talking about it since that long. Kimberly, my boss, has wanted me to go for so many months, but we finally had the opportunity to go.
Yep.
And it was the first time you got to experience actually some of what we teach.
Yeah.
I
I heard about it, all the background, like behind the scenes stuff, but got to really see what it's all about this past weekend. So that was cool.
And I really appreciate that we got to experience it together. Because
Yeah.
I could have gone by myself as a requirement, but to really experience it as a couple, not only for work, but for ourselves, I think was really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was good. I had never really watched anything, I'll be honest. But we had never really heard of Marriage Helper until I met Kimberly several months ago. Well, like a year or so ago now. And so, I had heard a little bit about it, not really knowing what I was walking into, but it was a neat experience and a lot of information.
It is a lot of information. It's 3 days.
3 days.
About 24 hours of content, which is a lot of Dr. Joe. Which, to clarify, we got to experience Dr. Joe's in-person workshop. And having talked to him every couple of days for the last several months, I really appreciated just his vulnerability and his ability to really teach complex things about relationships in a very simple manner. I know we say it a lot, Kimberly and I talk about it a lot, but to experience it there was unlike anything out there.
Yeah. He's a great storyteller and did a really good job sharing his story, sharing experiences that he's had with other people who have come to the workshop. And it was really neat to hear his side of the story. We had heard a little bit from Kimberly, but it was neat to finally hear his story from him.
Yes. We've been talking, it's been about 2 weeks since we've been, so we've been talking on and off about what our biggest takeaways are. Since you've never really experienced our content, what was it like for you to walk into that space?
It was a little bit different for me because since we were going out of obligation, I was meeting coworkers and people who know you, don't know me. But as kind of an outsider, it was, a very welcoming space. And, it's kind of a typical conference thing, like people start coming in and the typical outgoing people sometimes will like talk to each other, but people didn't really open up, kind of found their seats, sat down, waited. But kind of as the weekend went on, people started chatting and getting to know each other and sharing where they were from and things like that. So you saw like the progression over the weekend, which was kind of cool. Yeah,
we talk about a lot in our weekly meetings about truly watching the progression of each day and seeing the transformation and actually getting to experience that, not only for the other couples, but for us, just learning the material and in the way that it's taught. It's exhausting.
It is exhausting.
We went home with homework every night.
But it was good.
Yes. We honestly, I'm going to be very real. I went kind of I had 2 notebooks. I had the workbook, which we were making notes on, you're making fun. And then I had another notebook for work, mostly taking quotes from Dr. Joe, because he's a very quotable guy. But just that realization of this is really for anybody. And I think it really opened my eyes, and I think yours as well, is this workshop helps define that a crisis is not, it could be almost anything.
Yeah. I think again, not having listened to a lot of stuff, not knowing a lot about Marriage Helper in the sense, like, I knew, I guess, what the mission of Marriage Helper is to save marriages. And so when I had heard you talk about the workshop, it was very much like hey, we help people who are in crisis. We help people who, and you hear that word crisis and you think big deal type stuff. And I know you guys have some statistics out there and numbers and stuff that'll say, what percentage of people are actually going through like big, what I guess the world would define as like big crisis, like affairs, different things of that nature. But I think often we tend to downplay things that we go through in our life that can affect our marriage or our relationships with other people. And those can be pitfalls or a crisis that you go through that causes, causes a ripple or a distance in your relationship, in your marriage, or maybe in with your children, with your extended family. But obviously you are focusing on marriages. And so I guess, there have been things that we have gone through being married for 11 years that happens. And, but I never would have considered anything to be like a crisis, like we've gone through things. But I learned a lot, and I learned that you have to walk in those things and not downplay those things and realize that those things really do affect the way you relate with one another, the way you communicate with one another, or lack thereof. And so yeah, it was just, I honestly didn't go into it really expecting much at all. I expected a lot of information. That's what you would expect at a workshop. But I didn't expect to actually get anything out of it. And I did, actually, and I learned stuff about myself. I learned stuff about you, about us together. And I think we've had a lot of good conversations, and we've been really able to unpack that. And I realized that I think this can be used for much more than people would consider it being used for. Even people who think that they haven't gone through like a big thing, that this is still a helpful tool.
Absolutely. Yeah. With the several stages of our marriage over the last 11 years and kind of our stone moments, our kind of the keystone moments that we've had, medical, family, parenting related stuff, and how our past really, we understood each other's past, but there were pieces of it for both of us that we didn't know were playing and affecting how we communicate with each other, how we communicate with our parents, and how we communicate with our child. And it was such a great to watch the progression in ourselves, and the workshop became a safe spot for us.
Yeah.
With our breakout leader specifically, and with the other breakout leaders and coaches that were there. Even though they knew we were there kind of working, but they became a safe spot. And we could open up with them about how we were feeling and and each piece Dr. Joe walked through really helped dissect some of that.
Yeah. And I think, it's different for everybody, but I think too, a piece that plays into it, at least for us, is that I guess some would consider that we got married young. I wouldn't consider that we got married super young.
Some people thought we did.
I know people who, have gotten married younger, obviously. We were, 23, 22-ish, something 23, like that. Yeah. But we had just graduated college. And so, you grow up a lot from, at least I hope, from 20 to 23 to, 33, 34. And so, people may not think so, but you change the different atmospheres you're put in, the different, work situations, just different things shape who you are. And, people may think it's easier, when you grow up together, but I think you can also take a lot for granted. Like, oh, well, we know who each other are. And so we don't really need to work on, I know how to talk to you, you know how to talk to me, whatever, in just different pieces. So it seems like it would be like the perfect situation because you get to grow up together and see that. But I think sometimes you can take it for granted and not realize that, maybe the other person's changing, and changing what they want, what they need, from the other as they progress in your relationship.
And that was really neat to see Dr. Joe break down when we define love. I think Dr. Joe said love in the English language can mean a lot of different things. And so I think his research and the research of Dr. Gottman, which he uses very heavily, helped define the changes of the love triangle and that definition of it and how it's changed for both of us over time, and how stuff we don't even realize can actually become pushes, and the stuff that used to be a pull is now a push, and then how that also is a push and a pull for our child. We come from very different parental backgrounds. Love all of our parents.
Yes.
But we are not them.
No.
There are moments that I hear my father in my voice.
Yes.
And I apologize some days. But I think it's where we kind of saw it happen. We're seeing it happen faster with our child being 3.5 now. Mm-hmm. So we're watching the progression of that, watching how she pushes and pulls with us, and then how we push and pull because of those stressors. Mm-hmm. And we don't know that we may be flooding or we may completely break down. But then understanding each other's personality profiles and how that affects it. Mm-hmm. Understanding like me moving 15 times in my life affected how I see relationships and how I view long-lasting relationships.
I think it just, there was so much information too. There was so many things, to talk about, and we are very similar in our, profiles and the way we communicate. But I think, I have a tiny bit more of that, C in me. I'm a little more processor-y. It's not really a word. But I also, but I think at times we flip sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm kind of like, the fast talker sometimes. And I grew up that way. My mom is like that. I joke that my brother should have been a lawyer because he will argue with anybody about anything just for fun. So if I wanted to talk, I just kept talking. And so sometimes I think that plays a big piece into our communication with each other and with our daughter. And but I think the biggest thing for me in the workshop overall, like coming from an outside perspective and things and not knowing much about it, I would think if I had just heard the very generic mission, I suppose, of marriage helper, I would have thought, oh, this isn't for me. This is for someone who's going through something. This is for someone that's not me. But again, like I said earlier, I think we tend to downplay things that happen in our own lives, and think, we can conquer anything, we can do anything. And I think that, there's probably a lot of other resources too that are super helpful for people besides the workshop. But I think it puts you in that situation where, you have to communicate, you have to at least somewhat verbalize some things that you're thinking and feeling. And, there are some times where you may feel a little bit uncomfortable listening to some of the things or in the breakouts and stuff, but I think the team does a really, really good job just coming around people and encouraging people and wanting to see people succeed. Because that's not only the mission of their job per se, but you can tell that they just really love people. And they want to be sure that people feel loved, and that they have the best information possible, I guess, in order to do those things to succeed and move forward in whatever situation that they may be in.
I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways when I've talked to the team about this, I've talked to you about this, is the amount of information you've already hit on. There's a lot of information, but the amount of information, what information we got was some of the best information we've got on our marriage, and understanding each other. I understand myself better because of it, and in likeness, I actually understand you better. And I kind of wish we had this sooner.
Yeah.
Because we've gone through medical stuff and adoption, and I think it would have helped us we didn't communicate poorly.
Not all the time.
Not all the time. We
didn't
had
communicate the best either.
No. But also not downplaying what we went through. I think we would have been in a lot healthier mentally, physically, emotionally. We would have probably been in a better spot together as a unit, had we known some of the information we don't now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's true. You can always say hindsight's 20/20, shoulda, coulda, woulda. But you do the best you can with what you have. But I definitely think that having this enables us to move forward in a better way, in a more cohesive way, I suppose, or at least a more understanding way of each other and some of the things that we've kind of been able to process through, and some of the things that honestly I don't think we ever really talked about until we were sitting in the hotel room after and be like, oh yeah, that makes me think of this, because it was parts of our story that we knew, but we never really, like you said earlier, I think we never just realized how much they played into things. It
played into it and how much it affected it. And we joked about the homework, but I even told Dr. Joe prior, he asked my feedback, and we took Uno and books to read. And we devoted the time to experience the workshop to its fullest and really dove as deep as we could into the homework. And I think that that was just as impactful as some of the sessions.
Yeah.
Because I think we'll continue to talk about, obviously, I'm not going to stop talking about the workshop. It's what I do. But I think not only that, I think the better part of that is I won't stop talking about the workshop for us.
Yeah.
We both have our own separate notebooks. Mostly we know what each other wrote. Sorry, we broke the rules. We did read partly.
Not all of it.
Well, but I think this is something we'll be able to refer back to, and get to, because of where we sit, get to watch it evolve over time, especially with some of the newer pieces Dr. Joe is working in with the other facilitators, and really, honestly, it's gonna drive me to not promote it from the work side, but encourage those I know who have been affected to really consider it. Any final thoughts before I ask one last question?
I think the only other thing is just that, I think like we said, there were really, communication was a big thing, but there are just some key things that were talked about at the workshop that I think you've told me aren't talked about anywhere else, that, they're just stuff that kind of sits back here in your brain, that kind of comes back up that you think about.
Real, I didn't know the word limerence until I started working at this company.
Yeah, me either. Well, until you started working at this company.
Yeah, and I started working with Marriage Helper. I had no idea.
Yeah, well, but there's just some things that were said that you're only going to get there as you've told me, but that are just things that kind of keep coming to mind when you think about things. And I'm sure it's that way when you go to any, seminar or anything that's impactful on your life. But yeah, I wasn't expecting to get what we got out of it, I suppose.
I'm in the same boat. I wasn't expecting to get what we got out. I got a lot out of it, but I think we got even more out of it together.
Yeah.
Which is the why the couples workshop is so impactful, because it's something we experience together, and we can refer to it. Okay, final question.
Yes.
If you had a friend who needed the workshop, or if you knew somebody that was going through a situation, crisis, not crisis, what would you, if they knew about the workshop and were on the fence about coming, what would you tell them?
If I knew of somebody that was on the fence or someone who is considering it, obviously we went in a different situation than we did, but after coming out of it on the other side, I would absolutely say that they should do it. That I think that without even realizing it, they would probably get something out of it, whether they thought they really needed it or not. So I think it's worth it. I think that, and I'm not just saying that because I'm your wife, but I really do. I think it's done very well. And I think, again, I think I said this earlier, but you can tell that the people involved in the team at Marriage Helper just really care about people. And now meeting those people and experiencing it, I don't think you can go wrong. I think it might be challenging. It might be hard. It's a lot. But I definitely think it's worth it.
I would say very similar. I think, especially now that we've experienced it together, it's something that one of the last questions, and I'm not giving anything away, is why do you think you were brought to the workshop? So I'm going to go a little deep with my own thoughts here, but I truly believe that together we will be better to serve couples through our friends, but also serve our family better, and serve our child better through that. So if I know people who need it, I'm convicted. This is the best information I have experienced through all the marriage information I've digested. Not saying I digested great stuff before.
Or a lot, but.
But knowing our material and knowing Dr. Joe's story and the team, I could not be more honored to have experienced it, and especially experienced it with you. Yeah, that's all I can really say to that. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please consider subscribing and sharing this video to somebody you know. It truly helps the channel. Again, if you would like more information about our 3-day workshop, please click the link on the screen or the link in the description and go to marriagehelper.com, click on workshops in the menu, and learn more about our 3-day workshop experience. Our team would love to talk to you about that. Have a great day.